What's up, everyone? Welcome to a mini episode of the Pokemon podcast. It's super effective. Not to be confused with a mini series, which will start next week. This is just, we want to get something out here. First impressions. It's been a full day since Scarlet and Violet have released. I'm your host, Steve. Greg is here.
Hello, hello, hello. I am wandering this incredible space called Paldea. I am very lost. The map is not helping me. I put things on the map, and I'm like, I have no idea where I am.
It's a big map.
At any time. I spent, I kid you not, 45 minutes in a series of canyons, and I kept thinking, have I been here already?
Fair.
Yep. What? This looks different. No, I've been here. Now I'm in a dead end. Turn around.
Speaking of being here, Bobby is here.
I am right on the same page as Greg, though. Like, I just immediately lost. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Oh, I have no idea where I am now. Like, took a left turn and no clue where I am.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I posted this on the Patreon. Which if you want to support, we need like 4 more people to hit 600 patrons, which is our all-time high. Patreon.com/PKMNcast. But I posted a free update. Anyone can read it. It's pretty much just the schedule for the remainder of the year, which is this bonus episode for first impressions. And then every Monday until the rest of the year, we're still doing normal podcasts. Those will still be news-based. They might include Scarlet and Violet. They might include Pokemon Go, Masters, Unite, everything else that normally we see in news. Obviously, for the next couple months, it's probably going to be pretty Scarlet and heavy focused. But we're not going to do any spoilers in those news podcasts. So those are still free, safe to listen to. If there is something where we think it might be spoilery, we'll give a full disclaimer always. Obviously, then on the flip side, we are going to do a mini series. And Greg and I talked about this for hours of like, how are we going to do this? Because if Greg wants to go to gyms and I want to do Titans, and then Greg talks about gyms and I talk about Titans, are we ruining that experience for each other? Is Greg going left? Am I going right? Is Bobby going south? Like, it's so much. So I think we are going to do a mini series that should come out next Thursday and then next Friday. So there will be 2, and then the following Thursday and Friday. So pretty much 2 mini series every week for probably 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 or 6 episodes. And I think just being in this game for a little bit longer than 24 hours is kind of what we need to try to structure some sort of mini series. So that's still coming. And all the episodes are going to be free. Nothing behind a paywall. There will be ads, of course, because we do have our ad deals for every Monday. We did make an ad deal for the mini episode, so that's really exciting that we were able to secure that. But, you know, if you're Apple Podcast or your patron, you're not going to hear any ads anyways. So, anyways, all the housekeeping.
Oh,
housekeeping. I thought I got it right this
time.
time.
No, you never get it right. Go with what your impulse is and then do the other.
That was my impulse. I thought that was right. So this episode is just first impressions. We're not going to do any story stuff here as well. I think I put 12 hours in the game. Where are you at, Greg? How many hours?
I want to say, because the target gods blessed me for some unknown reason, I got the game early. And so I think I'm up to 20 hours. Because I played all night Thursday, all this morning, and some this afternoon. So, yeah, I probably put in about 15. I would say 15 hours.
Okay. And Bobby, where are you at?
Not 15 hours. I played a little bit last night, and then I played today. I'm a little over 2 hours in.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you're probably still in tutorial.
Out of tutorial, but
you ran through tutorial fast then.
Yeah, kind of did, but then had some fun after that. So not too much further than that.
Okay, Greg, hit me with your favorite thing so far in Paldea. What do we got here? What is the standout thing in this game that is your first impression?
It's so pretty and vibrant and alive. It everywhere I go, I'm like, this feels alive. This feels full. This feels like a world.
Yeah.
And like I'm excited to go to new areas, and every area, although some areas aren't, like Arceus had the monotone color problem, and there are some areas in here that I'm like, oh, this is clearly a farming area, or like, it is definitely one type of grass, but even in that one type of grass, there is so much variation that I'm impressed at how huge and wonderful and alive the outdoors feel. And I'm only going to say the outdoors. I got big issues with the cities.
Bobby, what about you? What is the good first impression standing out?
Honestly, I mean, Greg, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Like, it's so much more, again, like coming from Legends, right? It's so much more colorful. It's like, and then, so I played a little bit on my TV, but I've played mostly on the Switch. I have the Switch OLED, and it's like, it's just beautiful how colorful, how vibrant, like you said, it is. I really liked, I was expecting it to feel a little more empty than it is as well. Mm-hmm. So like, you run into one area and you see just a variety of Pokemon, and then you run into another area and it's like, yeah, you see some of the same stuff, but then there's new things popping up. There's like different ways that Pokemon, like whether it's like flying or on the ground, but like you'll either see a Pokemon, you can see him flying, or you can see him like a flying Pokemon standing on the grass or something, and it's like, oh, that's so cool, because I've never seen that Pokemon like standing up. It's always in the air or something like that, and so it's kind of cool to see those just differences and everything like that. So yeah, mostly like coming from Legends, definitely like just the color and the vibrancy of the region.
Yeah, it's almost like if the game has more Pokemon, they can put more Pokemon everywhere. Because Legends, the maybe one of the complaints I would say is that it had a very small Pokedex. It wasn't particularly large. I think it was 230, but when you take in effect evolutions and whatnot, you're kind of limited. And I think maybe I'll speak for some people. I was pretty much sick of seeing Shinx in Pokemon Legends after a hot minute. But man, like the tutorial in this game is pretty long, I would say, and I tried to jet past that tutorial, and I felt like I got punished for it. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but like my thought process was, if I start catching everything, I might over level, or I might just never get out of Tutorialville, because like they're trying to teach you. I get it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to catch anything. I'm not going to battle any trainers, which is a great feature. I love the fact that you don't have to worry about, you can come back, battle the trainers when you want to. But then when you try to go into Mesagosa, you get stopped.
Yeah.
And I got completely destroyed because I was like, oh, I'll come back to all of this. Like, I don't need to catch a Lechonk right now. I'll just come back and I'll catch one. Because when I played Legends, I think I spent the first 12 hours in that first area because I was just catching everything.
Yeah.
And in Legends, not only are you just catching one, you're catching 5 Bidoof, 5 Shinx, 5 Wurmple. All of a sudden there's a mass outbreak. You're doing that. All of a sudden there's something over here. You're doing that. And I was like, I don't want, I that was a great experience. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, I want to like, I kind of just want to, all the menus to go away. I want to be able to ride my Koraidon or Miraidon. I just want to have the world opened up, which is normal in these kind of games, right? Like even Breath of the Wild, where it's an open world game, you still have the tutorial area. So, and I love Breath of the Wild, played the heck out of Breath of the Wild. My thought process too was, I just want to get out of the tutorial area and then I want to figure stuff out. But Pokemon kind of punished me for that a bit.
A little bit. Yeah. There's some fun things, like there's optional battles, there's Pokemon that switch in and out on a fairly regular basis. Like I've gone through and back. Like I spent probably an hour in the first area walking back and forth because every time I went through, I'm like, oh, this spawned in, and I haven't seen it before. I'm gonna go look at this. That is really cool because I feel like it feels refreshing and somewhat exciting to go into a new area to see what has possibly popped in right now. I just want to look around, and it's fun to look at. It's just fun to wander around and look.
Right. Well, and like, just because it's open world and just, there's like, oh, you should go here or whatever, but it's like you don't technically have it, right? And just go some other way instead. And you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, I haven't seen any of these Pokemon yet. Like, so I'm just going to run through here. And like you said, you turn around and it's like, oh, and then there's something else popping in there. And then that kind of leads to another area, right? And you're all of a sudden you're walking. And then before you know it, you're like, I've completely lost the path of like where I was actually supposed to go, right?
I'm so lost. I have no idea where I am. And because the map rotates, I have rotated it. I've rotated it. Look, this is long before I knew how to interact with these things.
Okay. I was gonna just for our listeners, if the map rotation is weird, it is. Like when you look at it,
very weird.
You can lock when you're in the map. If you hit the R3, which is the right stick, it will lock it so north is always north, and then that makes understanding that map significantly easier.
Because I went in the map, opened it up, and I'm like, I'll mark it there. And then I left. I went back in the map, and I'm like, my mark is gone. No, it's shifted all the way over here. How is the map? Well, where am I on this map? I have no clue.
I want to find the person who likes the map that way.
Yeah.
It's like the worst way to use a map.
It's like, let's move multiple axes so that you never know exactly where you are.
Always just be locked. North is always north.
It should be like an option to unlock it from its lock state. But the mini map is helpful.
Yes.
Very
mini
helpful.
map is great. Mm-hmm. Except I don't understand. Maybe I'm just, not super smart. Rhetorical. Why does sometimes it show Pokemon and sometimes it doesn't? I feel like I noticed that if I go into the map and then leave it, all of a sudden the Pokemon are there. But if I'm kind of moving between areas, it doesn't really populate those on the mini map.
Yeah. Something similar I came across is there was a specific Pokemon on the map, and then I was, as far as I could see, I was right on top of it. Like, so I figured that area should have had that, and it didn't. And then I went back, and then no Pokemon showed up, and I was like, wait, but it was just there, and then it was there again like 5 minutes later, and I was like, did I trigger something and I didn't realize it, or?
So there was a game called Pokemon Go that had a map feature.
and it had 3 little footprints.
And it worked so well in that game. They just copied and pasted into this one.
So I believe the mini map shows you potential Pokemon in the area.
It shows you potential area. It also seems to show you ones that have spawned in recently, but there's no guarantee that they will be there should you go looking for them if you're just not right on top of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was looking for a water Pokemon, and it was like it said it on the mini map, but it wasn't there, and then eventually it showed up after I came back and forth. So I think the mini map, like, I don't know why sometimes it just doesn't show anything, but when you go into it, it then repopulates. I'm not sure if that's a feature or a bug, but
it's hard to tell.
It's real. Some of the choices in this game are. There's so many positives and so many negatives, but yeah.
So
I wanted to do an all water team, and I thought to myself, people say Pokemon games are too easy. I wanted a fun way to go through this game, and I already wanted Quaxly, I already wanted Wiglet. There was already another water Pokemon I saw that I wanted. That's 3. I was like, well, I might as well commit to the whole bit. I'll just find another 3. There's a lot of new water Pokemon in this game.
There are.
So there's quite a few. And so my 12 hours was pretty much like, well, I guess I'm going to try to figure out how to get into the water and then go up the water and then ignore all these love discs because no one wants love disc. And then, of course, on the way, I'm just getting distracted. I'm like, at this point, I'm catching. I'm out of Pokeballs. I got to go back. I feel like I'm too low level now that I've somehow got over here. So I'm going to, like, I guess, battle some people. And then it is both a blessing and a curse. And
Yeah.
I think the biggest compliment I can give this game is that it actually feels like a huge jump in how just Pokemon plays and feels, more so than Arceus ever did. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, Arceus finally pushed the series forward. And I think in retrospect, yeah, like it had like 7 battles in it. It did for the most. Like every Pokemon game pushes the series forward, right?
Right.
Like I don't think anyone's debating that. But like even with Arceus, you land down, you go through area 1, you get to the end, you beat Cleaver, you move to area 2. You go through area 2, you beat Lilligant, you move to area 3. It is very linear in that sense. Obviously, those zones are huge. You can explore those zones, but by having Titan battles, by having Team Star, by having the gym leader stuff, by telling you can do that in any order, and you actually have 3 characters arguing with you to do that, it really changes the way you play Pokemon in a sense. Like, I think you both can agree that you ended up in a new area, and then there's that question of, I don't even know if I can battle these people. Like, I don't know what they have. I don't know how strong they are. But I'm here now.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you get to I got to the first gym, and which is funny because I cautiously said on my preview after I got back from New York that I didn't think Brassius was the first gym, because Nintendo didn't tell me that they never said that this was the first gym, which was like my suspicion of like there's probably another gym leader beforehand. There is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Brassius is not the first gym. But you could do it first, ideally, especially if you start with Fuecoco, because, fire is strong against grass. And okay, well, if I know Brassius is, level 22 because of a trailer, then I'm assuming the first one's like level 10. But you don't know that without looking it up. And the Pokemon, and somebody said, well, the Pokemon in the area will tell you what the gym leader is. Everyone in the area is like 7 or 9. So I go into that gym thinking, oh, it's probably like 10 and 11. That's what Brock was. That's what Sharon was. That's what like literally every gym. And that gym leader is closer to 15. And by the way, I'm using all water Pokemon, so that wasn't helpful. But it was like, okay, so I defeated her, and then I can go to Brassius, and then like what's the next gym? Like, what is their level? It's weird because the easy thing is like, well, the next gym is just like this level going forward. But old Pokemon games put you in a pretty linear path. And you had a set amount of trainers, like let's just bring up Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, 400 trainers in that game, and you can't avoid most of them, so you're kind of forced into that. So it really gives you a different way just to think and feel about Pokemon. I don't think that's bad at all, but but with Legends, you don't really have to worry about like a team because you're not really battling.
Yeah.
Ever in that game. You're battling the dude with the Togepi, the girl with the Eevee, and that's like it.
I mean, this is miniseries stuff, but I have some quibbles about the you can go anywhere part of it. From my experience of trying to go anywhere and taking things out of order.
Just didn't work out for you, or just
there are specific unlocks, right? Like like you do need areas where you need to climb, and that is Koraidon does not have everything.
There
off the
are
bat.
also things that are blocked off that you have to complete certain things to get around them, which I was not expecting. So yeah, it is open world, and the things are very open and wild. But if you explore like I did and been like, I'm gonna go all the way to this place, you will run into things where it's like, actually no, you're not. No, you need to go back to do those things because they'll unlock the things that will let you come back here. So thanks, head back.
Do you think that's just like you made it a lot further than they want you to, like way too far ahead than they wanted you to, kind of like
Yep.
with, you know, I mean, open world games do that, right? There's like a reason that you could go that way, but like it's not going to work,
Yeah,
you know, because of
I
whatever.
absolutely hit the. I'm sorry, you're lost. Did you not see the 15 signposts we left for you back there? I know you ignored them, and we said you could. You really need to go back there.
I mean,
Your friends are waiting for you back there. Your friends aren't here right now. Go back to your friends, lost child.
I mean, there was a point in the game, you know, in the 12 hours. I will say after 12 hours, all my Pokemon are around 25. And I made it to an area with level 50 Pokemon. And even it crossed my mind was like, do I brute force and try to catch these Pokemon? I probably could, right? In Legends, you could catch alphas that were pretty strong. And then I was like, do I want to do that? Does that ruin my enjoyment? Like, why am I catching it and then boxing it when I already have like a level 20 version of it? Like, it's like this weird thing that you don't really think about in old Pokemon games, right?
Yeah, but I mean, also they brought back the catching difficulty from Sword and Shield. I don't think that's a huge spoiler, but it is harder to catch higher level Pokemon if you haven't completed certain tasks and have Pokemon at certain levels.
The thing with Sword and Shield was purely level based, right? Like if you were level 13 and it was 14, it was harder to catch.
Yeah, it's harder to catch, but there were two components, gym badges and Pokemon levels that affected difficulty, and that has carried over into this game.
I don't think I've struggled. To be fair, I didn't try to catch those level 50s.
I have.
You didn't have a good time trying to do that?
Nah.
Those quick balls didn't work for you?
Here's the thing. I have never actually thought, I'm really happy that they gave me a code for 100 Pokeballs for free before until this game.
Can we talk about that? I feel like I'm going through so many Pokeballs in this game, and it is not like Legends. Like I'm not catching the same Pokemon. Like I caught like 15 Weasels, and I was just I want to see if one of these have a mark. Like I like Weasel, but I feel like I am just burning through Pokeballs.
I burn through Pokeballs, and I have no money. I am broke. I am broke. Here's the problem with not having forced trainer battles. I am broke. I have no cash. I cannot update my style at all. I look like a basic school student, and it is killing my soul.
That's kind of the weird thing too. Is again in the linear progression. I don't think this is bad. For the record, I do not think this is bad. I think it's just a different way of thinking about a game that you have been playing for 25 years. But like, you know, after I got destroyed because I skipped the tutorial, I went back and I battled all those trainers, and then I bought some clothes, and then I was out of money. And then I was like, well, I don't really want to battle anyone. I just want to kind of explore. And I did that. And throughout exploring, I was like, well, I'm still kind of out of money. Yep. And then I was like battling wild Pokemon because I was like, well, I should get ready for this gym. And then I was like, well, I could battle like the 4 trainers here. And I was like, I'm still kind of out of money.
I am broke.
But I think I think it's just like collecting items, right? Like as soon as I checked my items, I was like, oh, I have 2 nuggets. I have a bunch of pearl strings.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden I sold that.
But I've never had to sell them before. I have sat on my treasure hoard like a terrible dragon type. And this is the first where I'm like, okay, but do I sell these? I don't want to. It feels wrong to sell my nuggets. And how dare you make me do this?
Yeah. I mean, just to being able to explore and like seeing all the items, like there's a lot of items, I feel like, throughout this game. There's a lot of things to pick up, and I don't know
if you like picking things up.
Yeah,
this game has
it's like things are more noticeable because of the way they've done it, right? Like, or you also can, send something out to like look for stuff too. So there's that. But it's nice
galore on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really did the Pokemon thing, which is make something really rare in one game, make it slightly rare in the next game, and then the third game, free for all.
Free for all. There's nothing but mints everywhere I turn. You're like, you want some mint? No, not really. Thanks.
A couple things before we get to the frame rate issue, which I know people are dying to hear about. I genuinely think that this game is harder. I feel like the NPCs hit harder. I feel like their AI is better. I have never seen so many NPCs use protect, and or to flip that, I've never seen NPCs spam the move that is the best move that they can be using.
Yeah.
And I say that because that is what we do as players. We roll into Blaine's gym. He has 3 fire Pokemon. Surf, 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 surf. There's no reason to hit any other button. You just hit the surf button because you win. And I have fought NPCs where I'm like, man, I hope they don't use this move, because if they use this move, they win. And they're like, no, this is the best move to use. I'm just going to continue using it. And in past Pokemon games, it's like the NPC would roll a die. Like, oh, they use Toxic. They rolled the die again. Oh, they happen to roll. Like, a real player wouldn't use Toxic twice, right? No point to. We're smart. Well, maybe if you didn't know what Toxic did. But like, I haven't seen an NPC or even a wild Pokemon make that mistake. Maybe, I'll run into it. But
yeah, I've had a few that I'm like, oh, you're not good at this. But mostly they do seem to hit harder. I seem to hit nothing. My punches feel like they're made out of wet paper bags most of the time. I'm like, I'm dying out here. Please. But I also realize it's because I drove around the area that I was supposed to be in, and I'm like, yeah, come on, everybody. Oh, nope. I should not be here. I'm sorry for trespassing. I apologize. My error. But it's also, the issue that I had is I brute forced my way back, and when I came back to the earlier things, I'm like, oh, I am blowing through these people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am just mowing them down, and that is when I'm like, this is how the R part comes in handy, because I'm just firing my little guys out like a machine gun. Papa can't be bothered. Papa can't be bothered with these people. Go, my friends. I gotta walk.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I go back to you have to think about this game differently, because in a game like BDSP, they're going to kind of feed you those NPCs in order. And they're going to, BDSP is kind of a bad example, because I feel like no one gets stronger in that game. Like, you get to the 5th gym and you're still fighting like level 17 people, like, and you're like, why didn't any of the NPCs increase? But in this game, they do, I felt like I fought somebody who was level 11, and then I jumped in the water and I swam around a cliff and I got to the beach, and all of a sudden this person was 26, and I was like, what? Like, how are you so close to this person and your levels are so much different? Mm-hmm. It's a good thing. I don't think it's bad. I just, you're not used to this in a Pokemon game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of what makes this game feel refreshing in a lot of ways. Like, I didn't expect the world to feel this large. That's the first thing. It feels immense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said in my preview too, I said this game will make Pokemon Legends seem tiny.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah. Because I'm like, I am lost all the time. I've spent hours in one area and still think, oh, I didn't even see this over here. Mm-hmm. I have no clue where I am, because I've spun my map around 7 times and I'm completely lost.
Yeah,
I've fallen into the water and it shot me out somewhere.
I feel like with Legends too, though, like, you look at the map overall and it's like, oh, this looks huge. And then with Legends, it's like, okay, but I'm only actually going to go to these 5 areas, right? And then those areas were decent sized, but it was just it was like areas within that bigger map, right? And this is like, oh, it's just everything, there isn't a like, oh, you can only go to this and that. It's like, it's just, and like I said, I have not nearly as far as you guys are, but even in the couple hours I've been playing, like, I'm just constantly getting lost. Like, I know I can mark a destination and I know, but then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what's over here? What's up here? What's going on there? And then I'm like, oh, I don't even remember what the task was at this point, So.
Oh yeah. I'm like, I put a marker on there. I have no idea where it is or how to get there.
One of the smoothest things they've done. Whoever was in charge of this needs a raise. But when you get a new mission,
they've done.
And when you get a new mission, it comes up at the top and it has like that slow countdown, and you can hit Y to get more info. Like, really intuitive, really great. I love seeing like those things in games because one, if you're not really good at video games or you need a pointer all the time, boom, it's right there. If you're kind of the middle person where you're like you kind of want to know, but sometimes you click it, sometimes it's right there. And then if you're a person that's like I don't read anything, easy to ignore. Like it is such a good feature that seems to have no flaws in it popping up there. I think it's one of the better things they did. One of the bad things I think they did is in 26 years, they removed Set. It's gone.
I can't. Yeah, I can't.
Like what? Mm-hmm. Like I had totally understood why Legends Arceus does not have it. That game has 7 battles. I get it. I totally understand. That just removing it just seems so weird.
Yeah, I looked and I'm like, it can't. And here's the series of heartbreaking events that happened. I was at the point in the game where I'm like, oh, I probably gonna start doing battles now. I should switch it to
Set.
Mm-hmm. So that it's there. So I went into the options, I changed my text speed, and I'm like, oh, it's not in here.
It's not?
Oh, well, it's got to be somewhere else. And then I looked, and it wasn't. So I'm like, oh, well, that's a bad choice. I took 2 steps forward, and Nemona's like, here's a TM. By the way, they're one use only. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm like, how could you do this to me? How? How?
We got so many people like Steve's so hard on the TM machine. It's going to be fine. It's not
fine.
It again. The whole point of TMs and all that stuff is to teach your Pokemon new moves. I would argue, I don't have the data, but I would argue most people who play through a Pokemon game probably rarely use TMs. They probably rarely use held items. They have no clue what natures are, and they don't even care about abilities. And that is 100% fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the people who need TMs and who rely on TMs are the competitive people. And Pokemon has done such a good job at lowering that barrier to entry to get into competitive with bottle caps, with mints, with egg moves. Why have your competitive person find a Pokemon to grind it out to then do a TM? Like, it just, like, I get it. I get that crafting is the current fad. I understand. There was a point where Call of Duty was like, we need levels. We need our games to be JRPGs. We need level 5 and 10. Like, I get that was also a fad in a lot of games where now just every game has a leveling system for no reason. It's fine. I get it. But like, crafting is here to stay for at least until people get completely sick and bored of it. You could have put it almost anywhere else that wasn't creating a brand new barrier of entry for the people who will use it the most. Mm-hmm. And if anyone's commenting like, it's not that big of a deal, you probably are not a competitive person that is building multiple teams a week.
I mean,
and then these people are the same people that complain that people go to PK Hex or they go hack and they're like, oh, I hate all the competitive people hack. It's like, yeah, because there's so many barriers to make a team quickly that like, why would any competitive person want to spend 30 minutes hunting down a fish to get certain scales just to try to see if that move is the right move for their team.
I mean, there's the thing that I like about the team machine is when you find a team in the wild, it gets added to the machine. What I don't like about the machine is, sure, it got added. You're not telling me what the ingredients I need for it. And once I make one, it's like, thanks. You're going to need to do that again.
I
don't have anything to add in that situation.
Look, the TM machine was exactly what they advertised. There was no like maybe post game they're just maybe they're handing out Lechonk hooves like candy. Like maybe it doubles the amount of Lechonk hooves you get. I don't know.
I said before, like they said, oh, we wanted to have this. Let your partners go out in the field for you, and then they thought, well, it's got to come back with something. And what are we going to do with that thing that comes back?
It feels like they were like, where can we put crafting?
Yeah,
I don't know. We had when they turned TMs unlimited, that was the correct choice.
Yep.
This seems like a step backwards.
It felt to have that and then find out that set is gone. I'm like
the same
the
like
set
2
thing,
minutes span.
the set thing. I rolled my eyes and I was like, for those that don't know, set and shift, they've been in the game since Red and Blue. Shift is the default. What happens is when you're battling, I don't know why I always use Blaine. When you're battling Blaine and he sends out a Rapidash, it'll say like, Blaine is sending out Rapidash. Would you like to switch? Yes or no? Set is Blaine just sends it out. You have no option. This is very popular in, people who Nuzlocke. This is popular for people who just want it to be a little bit harder. This is just popular for people who are familiar with Pokemon and don't want to answer that question every single time. Because it's like, my Pokemon should be able to handle it. If it can't, I'll switch on my own. And to be fair, you can still do all of that. If it says Blaine is sending out a Rapidash, you can say no, and that's the same as set. You just have to answer that question every time. Knowing this company of, removing the, experience share, doing all these other things, I doubt this is, they'll add it back in an update. I'm not going to hold my breath for that. It seems they made that choice. And the Game Freak likes to stick with the choices they make.
Yep.
AKA cutting the national decks. They're sticking with that.
Look, I can't. My heart is broken. You can see, go to my Twitter while it's still up for the next, I don't know.
When we do the
few
miniseries,
hours.
Greg, you can tell me all the new Pokemon you love.
Ooh, short list.
Okay, we got the frame rate issue. There was a bunch of reviews.
Before we get to the frame rate issue, I want to talk about the other choice that they made that makes me feel bad, and that is they took away shops and just made them menus.
I brought that up in my preview.
Because
it's weird.
It makes the cities feel like set pieces.
I think what's worse is not only did they do that, but they separated out each shop to add more shops.
They did. So I walk into a wall with a menu, and sometimes the menu has pictures. Sometimes it doesn't. Why? Don't know. We didn't pay for picture budget for this shop. And also, there's a thing about world building. Like, I get that walking into the clothing store, you didn't interact with anybody in there, but it made the city feel like a city. Mm-hmm. There were people in there. Mm-hmm. When I'm walking into a wall and then I get kicked out of the wall because I didn't want anything that was posted on your bulletin board, I just feel like I'm on a fake set every time. Most of the doors are closed, and the few doors that are open, most of them don't go anywhere but to a menu. And there's not even a person talking to me. Mm-hmm. It is just weird, a Greg, menu.
I feel like walking into a door to get a menu felt bad when I first did it when I played in New York. But when you talk to the person in the gas station, they just present you a menu, which is ultimately the same thing. But because that person is there and interacting with it, it feels better.
It feels better.
Yeah. Right.
It feels like you're inhabiting a world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like walking into a door, you have no clue who you're talking to. You don't know what the inside of the building looks like. It's almost every single shop should have been like a little food truck or something. Yeah. Where at least you're like saying hi to a person.
Machine. Just say like hit E4 for a new pair of shoes. Just for a world that feels so alive outside, to go into a city full of robots, because we'll talk about that in a second, to walk into fake buildings, it's just like, come on.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that I don't think I read a single review that brought that up. And I was like, oh, that was like when I was playing the thing in New York. I was like thinking of what reviewers would complain about. I was like, oh, probably the building thing. Like right away, I was like, oh, this is jarring. And then the catching Arceus stuff, which I really don't think is that bad after playing 12 hours. Like I don't think it's bad at all. I should say I don't think I like the catching in Arceus. I also like the catching in Let's Go. I like catching Pokemon. I really think they kind of came up with like a happy medium in this game, where you're not catching 5 Bidoof to complete a Pokedex. You're catching one Bidoof, and if you want to, catch more Bidoof, it's like past Pokemon games. We got to talk about the frame rate stuff. I don't want this show to be too long. So, all of the reviews were pretty positive on the game, and I think we've been pretty positive here. But I think we all came into this recording with that same complaint that the game it chugs and and the frame rate is terrible,
like a slog sometimes to work. And because of the frame rate, every time I approach a new town, I feel like, oh, I'm walking into Robotville, because they're all... And then the minute you get close, it's like, oh, a human's nearby. Act human. Stop acting like a robot, please. And it's so jarring to be like, why is everybody walking so weird, except when I finally get close enough, you all smooth out. It's bad. Also, don't throw a Pokeball in the water, because it will mess with your mind, and you will never look at the world the same way.
Absolutely. That was the most jarring thing for me, again, earlier in the game. And I will say, this is one of the first Pokemon games where I went in with as little knowledge as possible. So like I listened to the podcast when you were leading up to it, and I listened to the stuff after New York, but I didn't actually read any reviews. So going into it, I actually didn't know about the frame rate issue. I hadn't read anything about it, and I was staying away from a lot of stuff just because I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into this with nothing, and I just play it like this. And immediately I was like, oh, I'm guessing this was like the most hit on thing in a review. It was like, a minute or two into the game, you're like, what happened here?
So here's the thing, right? Prior to the reviews coming out and me streaming Sword and Shield, because I'm waiting for the game to come out, people were like, hey Steve, what do you feel about all the review stuff and the frame rate thing that everyone keeps talking about? And I was like, I played the game. I played it, over a month ago. I played it in New York. Nintendo invited me out. We did our coverage on it on YouTube and the podcast and stuff. I was like, the game ran great for me. Beautiful. No issues. I said it ran better than Legends Arceus. I sincerely think it did. Thought it did. So when all these people were coming into my Twitch stream or on Twitter, I saw this, or in the Slack or in the Discord of like, what do you think about the frame rate stuff people are talking about? I'm just like, people over-exaggerating, right? Pokemon, if there's anyone who hates Pokemon games the most, it's Pokemon fans, right? Just, this is the tree thing again in Sword and Shield. Like, I'm sure the trees look bad, doesn't affect it. I'm sure, like, okay, maybe when you get into the city, it's a little choppy. Sword and Shield had this too, right? You saw Wingles flying. Not that big of a deal. And I started playing it, and I was like, this is not what I played in New York. Like, I cannot... I don't know how to put words. I don't know how to say how I played a totally different game in New York. It ran so smooth. There was none of this. The only issue I saw was when I was making a sandwich, a little piece of lettuce did this like little jittery thing and then like floated down through the table, and I was like, that's funny, huh? Unfinished game, no big deal. Like, it was funny. This game is like doesn't even. It's so choppy and so like everything feels like a robot, like what Greg said. But again, I fought Titans. I explored all the same area. I did Mela. I did the gym. I flew. I swam. I caught things. It ran so smooth for me in New York. And they were like, the only, they were like, hey, when you go to Messagosa, don't go into any buildings. My thought process was, well, you can't go into any buildings, so maybe that was actually the joke. But I was like, maybe they're still tightening things up in Messagosa, 2 months ago. They were like, hey, when you defeat Cloth in the Titan battle, don't chase him. Makes sense now. The Titan battles have 2 battles each. It was just a different, and it has to be fixed, right? Like, there's no way they can continue this without being fixed. And I want to say I have faith that they will fix it because, again, I want to stress that I played a different game. I actually talked to other people that are at that preview event, and they all said the same thing. I was like, am I crazy? Did you guys think that game ran really smooth in New York? And they were like, yes. 100%. This game is running terrible compared to what we played 2 months ago.
I mean, it was shocking when I got it, and I'm like, what is... And I thought, well, because I got it early, I thought, well, I must not have
the day
full
one
patch downloaded.
Yeah.
Like, there's something else coming. And so I still played it. I'm like, I'll accept it. And then midnight rolled around, nothing updated. I went, oh, no. No. And it's not just the frame rate. There are a number of super wonky things that can happen in that game. I have been in the middle of battle where my camera has shot me into the ground, where I'm seeing half the screen up ground and then the yawning void of no code below it. And I'm like, how did I get here? How am I here?
Well, and not to like just go off into how many different, types of issues like that there are, but right when you're in your room, like the beginning of the game, I stepped out of there or, whatever, down the stairs and immediately noticed things where I was like, wait, hold on. Like, let me run back up the stairs and do that again. Because there's no way that it's like, it was just that noticeable, that immediate. And it was like, this does not feel like a 2022 Pokemon game. Like,
it's
very weird.
Heartbreaking in the fact that all of the worst critics are justified with this one, because it is almost experience ruining at times.
Yeah,
like
I would agree.
The game is so beautiful, but when I see 7 people jittering across the ground, and I'm like, why? What is just don't render them in.
Right. Well, okay. Like, think about, and like, obviously Sword and Shield, Zacian or Zamazenta turning around, right? Like, and how much that just takes you out of the moment, right? And it's like that same thing, right? You're discovering a new region, a new area. You're like, wow, this is amazing. This is great. This is, like, I've lost this moment of whatever I was just discovering, and that's unfortunate.
The game is so beautiful, and it's so huge, and I still am. I'm still excited to play. I'm still excited to explore, but it's got such a heavy lid on it because I never know when it's going to feel like it's unplayable all of a sudden, or when I'm just going to suddenly stop for no reason while the game catches up. I mean, there's been a number of times where I've gone and walked forward and I'm like, oh, we have to wait. And now I can continue.
Yeah.
I will say there was one Pokemon who, I'm not going to get into details, they did turn around. And when they turned around, it was like, that was at least a smooth animation. That was an improvement from the last time we saw a Pokemon turn around, and it was awful. But other than that, I was like,
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great things. There are
a ton
new
of
animations of
things.
Pokemon walking around. New moves I already saw. We can save a lot of the stuff for the miniseries.
Quick thing. The textures on the Pokemon, like in battles, their skin and their fur, blew me away.
Yep. Anytime they're up close, like anytime it cuts in, it's like up close all of a sudden to a Pokemon. I was like, well, this is beautiful, like the way that they show it. But then pan out, and you're like, what? I mean,
Yeah, I don't 100% agree with Greg of the game is beautiful. I still think Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee is probably the most gorgeous Pokemon game they've put out. I just think the style they decided to go with Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee fits Pokemon so well. I get the realistic, kind of look they're going for, but it does to me still come across muddy at times. In some instances, and at this point, I don't know if that's because of frame rate or.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I like about this art style is this feels more grounded in reality. Where Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee felt like a cartoon.
I think that's a preference, and I think
it is a preference. I don't
Yeah.
prefer the cartoon because I played World of Warcraft for so long, and
that makes sense.
I am done with that. I am done with that.
Oh well, let's be clear here. Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee looks better than World of Warcraft.
Not hard.
Not hard. Okay, a couple things. I did some testing on my own. Maybe somebody else did. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the internet. I've been streaming for 12 hours. If you are playing in handheld mode, apparently the game runs better. I believe that is because handheld mode is locked at 720p. You actually, even if you're on an OLED Switch, you don't get 1080p on that. You get 720. It's a smaller screen. It still looks good at 720. What you can do is if you go into your settings on your Switch and scroll down to TV, your default is set to automatic. You can change that to 1080 or 720 or 480. Change it to 720. Unless you have like a 4K OLED TV you're playing on, you're not going to notice a difference. And I played 6 hours on automatic. I then played 2 hours on 720. I played 2 hours on 1080, and then I went back to 720. 720 runs incredibly smooth. It's not perfect, and it's actually almost unbelievable that we're playing a 2022 Pokemon game, and I have to tell you to go into settings to drop it down to 720 so it runs okay. There are some weird boomer people out there that don't believe in autosave. You are absolutely out of your mind if you are turning off autosave in this game. I have seen so many people come in being like, I lost 2 hours of progress, my game just crashed. I didn't forget to save. Like, no, there are so few instances where you need autosave off. If you're going to like soft reset for a nature on a starter or soft reset for, I don't know, a certain legend, I don't know if you can't even do that, right? You would turn autosave off to do that. You do not need to turn autosave off from moving from point A to point B and just level grinding and filling your Pokedex. Keep it on. Maybe if this game gets an update, hopefully it will, you can feel comfortable, but I do not recommend having autosave off. I also want to say that this is not the first time that a Pokemon game has come out kind of broken. I've said multiple times on this podcast, I don't think Game Freak is the best developer out there. I do not think that they hit out of the park with development. There are some good developers out there, game-wise. I think Game Freak's average. I think they obviously understand their custom code, so probably getting outside help is pretty hard. That's just a guess. But I don't think I've ever been blown away by like Game Freak's coding abilities. Now in X and Y, there was a game-breaking bug where if you saved in Lumio City, your game just wouldn't boot up.
Yep.
And that existed for about 2 weeks. That is a game-breaking bug. At least in this case, not game-breaking, but also me telling you to pump your game down to 720 ain't great either.
Nope.
X and Y had a couple of issues. Most of those fixed pretty quickly. Sword and Shield, I actually don't think had any game-breaking or anything issue. I can't remember anything Sword and Shield. I know it had updates. That happened. I know people were like, fix the shinies. They never did because it wasn't technically broken. And I just want to remind everyone that this wonderful game that people remember, Diamond and Pearl, came out for the DS 15 years ago, and that game ran like absolute garbage. You would use Brick Break on a Chansey, and in that time of Brick Breaking the Chansey, you could make a 1 hour collect call to Australia, and that Chansey's health bar would still be going down because of how slow and sluggish Diamond and Pearl ran. Like I love Platinum. I think Platinum is a fantastic version of that game. There is zero reason in the entire world to ever play Diamond and Pearl because 900 plus issues were fixed from Diamond and Pearl to Platinum, and it is a significantly better game. I don't know why this game runs so poorly when 2 months ago I played a different game. I played a totally different game. I also watched a review from GameSpot, and what was shocking is I agreed with. I think if you have time to watch a 10-minute review, I think that's probably the review to watch if you're on the fence. I think the review was spot on. I agreed with every single thing they said, and I was like, okay, last 2 minutes of the review, they're going to talk about the frame rate, and they go, frame rate was awesome. Everything was perfect. And everyone was like, what? Like, it must have been that patch, because that patch came out within the last, 5 or 6 days. And obviously, if you're a reviewer, you would have got the game 2 weeks ago. So they probably played through it, wrote the review up the last couple days, and published it, because they didn't say anything bad about the frame rate, and every other reviewer is. So it's like, Did you not get the patch? Was it the patch that like ruined the frame rate? It's so weird.
Maybe that's weird. I didn't read the reviews, but that's really weird that they didn't. But like every other reviewer seemed to notice that though. So
people procrastinate. You save the review to last minute. I don't know, but like I said, I talked to other people at the preview event. I know that person who did the GameSpot review was also at the preview event, not mine. There was no frame rate issues then. There's frame rate issues now. Do the 720p thing I suggested, or play in handheld mode, I guess. Do not, would not advise to have autosave off. Also, real quick, you can't toggle battle animations. That's weird. That was in Legends. I know that for sure. Again, not a lot of battles in Legends. We've already talked about that, but they removed set and shift. They removed battle animations. But they did put the sound settings in the settings instead of just finding a random NPC in Sword and Shield to give you headphones. I don't know whose decision that was in Sword and Shield, but
they had to sacrifice set so that they could give you sound settings immediately.
We only have so much room in the setting panel. What are we cutting?
What are we getting rid of?
We don't want our users to scroll down to see more settings. 12 hours. Besides the frame rate issue stuff, besides a couple of the bugs that you guys have talked about, I can't put this game down. There's something about the world that is so infectious, and I'm not even close to exploring all of it. And I walked to 2 new cities, and I haven't seen everything in the city. There's something about this game that is almost good. Like, it's good minus the issues we said, but I feel like this could have been easily. I could see all the reviews being like, this is the best Pokemon game ever, but everything we just talked about I think puts it pretty low, honestly. Like, I think the frame rate thing is a big deal.
Well, the thing that's I get good there maybe is that it hopefully can be fixed, right? Like, so if that is true, and I mean, I feel the same way, again, only 2 hours in, but I want to play more, right? Like, as soon as we're done here, I'm just going to be hopping back on the Switch to play. But if that is, the thing, and I'm thinking it too, it's like the frame rate thing is the only thing, not the only thing, but one of the very few things where I'm like, but the rest of this game is great, then hopefully they'll possibly patch something and fix that, or at least improve it to some extent. But
I mean, they improved things post Sword and Shield launch. I have hope that they will push a patch out and fix this. It's just, it is such a shame. Like, such a, like, what could it could have been like the crowning achievement, right? Like, this could have been the hit the ground running. They knocked it out of the park and didn't, they walked to first at this one.
Yeah, it's like you can I know that the default is like, the most richest media company in the world. Yeah, I mean, like, I say this all the time, 60% of the revenue is from plushes. It's not like every time a Pikachu plush is sold, they give Game Freak $1 to like make their game better. That's not how it works.
I mean, I just feel like something went in that they didn't have time to fully QA, and it has fundamentally changed that game.
Yeah.
Given your experience from where we are, they made some change at the last minute or put something in that they were holding off, and it unexpectedly hit the game hard.
Well, and it's not even like, it's not like there are things adding up in the game where it's like, this is just from an average developer, right? This is, I mean, they made Sword and Shield. And that didn't,
made Legends.
They made Legends.
They made a lot of games over the years.
Yeah.
Right? And they didn't have the same kind of frame rate issues they're having now. So this is different. This isn't like, Game Freak, of course, like, I don't think anybody would have predicted these kind of issues coming from Game Freak, not because they're an amazing developer, but because they made plenty of games in the last 5-6 years that didn't have these issues. So they can do it, and they had a game you played a couple months ago or a month ago that didn't have these issues.
Yeah.
So they can do it. Like, what happened?
Yeah, the biggest question is just what happened. How did we get here? Because I cannot tell you how many people are super excited to play. They start, and then within 15 minutes, I'll get the, did it run this bad for you? Yeah.
It's really hard to recommend.
It's hard to recommend. I'm like, I love it. I'm a super fan, and I'm just chugging through. But if you are on the fence or like kind of mad at the company, this is going to be like a great big underline of see.
I think that's the best point that Greg has made. If you are on the fence and or you did not have a good experience with Sword and Shield or Legends or BDSP or Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee or Sun and Moon or literally like the last Pokemon game you played, if you did not have a good experience, I would not recommend this game right now.
This is not winning
because
you back.
because it would push you farther away from the series at this point.
Yep.
Which is like, if this game's frame rate was good, I think a lot of people could see back past tree textures. A lot of people could see past, areas being too hard or too easy, because there is a lot of delight. There is a lot of charm. I think even people could look past, some of the doors just being menus, right? But if you can't even get there without constantly thinking like, why is this running so slow? You're going to put the game down.
Yeah.
And if you're putting this game down and you put down your last Pokemon game, oh boy, it's going to be a real uphill battle to try to get you to buy any other Pokemon thing coming out after this.
Yep.
And that's just what it is. It's really hard to recommend right now.
It's super unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what bugs me the most is you got all the tree people out there that are probably like, see, now it's a new game and there's new problems and there's new things. And this time it's like,
I think the trees look great.
This time it's warranted.
They don't move, so they don't look like robots.
And there's no tree shaking. That's the real problem. No tree shaking. Okay, we hit an hour. Let's wrap up. We will be back on Monday for a normal podcast. We will probably talk about something Scarlet and Violet related. Maybe egg breeding. That's a little different. Maybe some stuff that you just might not know about. Hey, like if you hit R3, that locks the map. Mostly mechanical stuff. Mostly news related. We'll see if an update comes, hopefully, before the holidays. I think that's probably if there is going to be an update, that's probably going to be their goal. So, they, don't hurt their Christmas sales. I'll still be streaming on Twitch, doing a marathon. Also, I will be streaming on Thanksgiving if you need somebody to hang out with. And if you want to support the show, if you want ad-free episodes, if you want to support the show, if you want to be in our communities, which are really great, really flourishing right now, lots of activity, patreon.com/PKMNcast or ISE.cash. We also released a brand new poster tier, which is at the $10 level. It's a poster of all the Galar Pokemon. That'll start shipping in January, but you would want to sign up for Patreon now so you can get into that and how that works. Other reward tiers, lots of stuff over there, and it supports the show, supports what we do. Otherwise, I'm not going to do Twitters because I don't think Twitter's going to exist. You know where to find Greg if you want to, Bobby if you want to, me if you want to, twitch.tv/PKMNcast. If you're watching on YouTube, comment, tell me your favorite part of the game. Not spoilers. Stop spoiling stuff in YouTube comments. Don't be weird.
Stop spoiling stuff in YouTube comments.
Nobody likes that.
Especially when I've said multiple times in that last episode, hey, we didn't look at spoilers. And they're like, well, if you read the spoilers, if you listened, you would have...
So mad. I can't even go there.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for making it to the end. We'll be back on Monday and then mini series next week. Very excited to do that and to have all our thoughts in some sort of cohesive format. So this has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast. We are
super effective.
Super